Hey friends, my name is Jake. This is Bandit. Welcome to another awesome video. This is the P300. Yeah, the video will look better once you get to the tabletop view. You'll see the knife better. This is from ANV Knives, Acta non-Verba. They are based in the Czech Republic, part of the European Union, and they've made this knife for a while. This is version 2, or the updated version of the knife that I'm going to review for you today. The original version is still available in some places, either in a carbon steel or a stainless steel, but this new updated version right now is just in Sleipner steel and comes in 3 different colorways with Cerakote coating on it. This is a 5 1/4 inch knife, and I think you're gonna like it. It's around 140 bucks, 150 bucks in some places. There's one store I think that's got this right now for 136 something and change. I think that's Chicago Knife Works. I'll leave links down below to make it easy for you to get these. If you're in Canada, I didn't find any store that has these in Canada right now, but rest assured, a fixed blade like this, you've got no problem importing it into Canada. CBSA will let it come through and you can get this knife if you want it. What do you think of it, buddy? Just a little heads up, they did send this knife to me. ANV likes my channel. They like the way I do my reviews, and they asked me if I would review this. I've reviewed some of their other knives. They've got slip joint knives, they've got locking folders, they got fixed blade outdoor knives, this P series, and they've got military style knives as well. So check them out, anvknives.com. You can buy them directly from them or other links that I'll have down below to make it easy for you. Come to the tabletop now and let's check this thing out together. This is how the knife comes. If you want to know the unboxing and everything, watch the unboxing video. I'll link it down below. I'll link it up here in the corner right now if you want to see that, and then come back to this one. This is how the updated version of the P300 comes. Now, the updated P200, same kind of updates as this has. This is how it comes. Let's take this out here, put the knife aside for a second. Look at the sheath. It's a Kydex sheath. It's a pancake sheath. You can see there's a little bit of flex right there still. That's just because the nature of putting slots in for a MOLLE strap system if you want. But it's got the proper MOLLE loops here as well. If you've not seen one of these before, let's open it up right there. 2M MOLLE 75. If you want to put on a different loop system, like maybe you want a more traditional tech lock type kind of, it's not really traditional, isn't it? Pretty modern. A tech lock type, if you want to put on something else, that's okay. These are standard sizes, like the distance between these holes, so you can change what it is. But this is how it comes, and it's really well done. We've got a great big drain hole right there. Perfect for outdoors knife. And that's what this is. This is an outdoors, I don't want to say outdoors man. That term's getting a little archaic today. I'm not a politically correct kind of guy, but I like to include women in outdoor activities, sports, hunting, all those kinds of traditional things that we think of as male things. Women love doing those as well. So, but this is an outdoors person type of knife. Sheath definitely fits that category. Now, the knife here, what do we got? We've got a carbon steel blade. This is Sleipner steel, which is a little bit like D2, but better. And better in pretty much every way. Now, Sleipner can go up to about 64 on the Rockwell hardness scale, but this is not at 64. ANV puts it at about 58, which leaves it with a lot of strength, a lot of toughness in the blade, a lot of strength, still decent edge durability, and it's a good steel. I really like this steel quite a lot. And we've got, I'm not going to talk about the differences between this and the old version quite yet. I'll do that a little bit later. But what we've got is a very slight drop point. We've got a swedge that starts, pretty close to the hand, comes most of the way down and then ends. And so you get back to a thick tip, very strong, thick tip on this thing. We've got a flat grind, like a saber grind. It comes most of the way to the edge. But we do have this nice big flat section that you can clamp onto when you need to sharpen it. Well done. Here's the sharpener's tool. Now you might see a little bit of a glint of steel color right there, and the Cerakote's off. That's because I sharpened this knife already, and I'll talk about that more in just a little bit of a while. I did that. From the factory, it was nice and black all the way up to the cutting edge. This side, I got a tiny little spot right there as well. The sharpener's choil, it's big enough, but it doesn't come quite forward enough to easily protect, that kind of nicking from happening. Not a big deal. I don't mind this. That's just fine. The Cerakote is really tough. You can see there's no nicks and scratches on this thing, and I even did a little bit of batoning on it, although that's not really recommended with this knife, mostly because of this swedge. You're getting a fairly thin edge. You tend to try to hit fairly much in the middle of the knife, with your baton when you're using it, and it's just getting thin. So it's not that kind of knife. It's not a woodworking, a bushcrafter's kind of knife. This is basically a hunting knife. They call it a skinning knife. I think I would just call it a hunting knife. You could use it for skinning. One benefit of that thicker section up here is if you are skinning, you can do this kind of hold, and so that you're delicately, cutting through things. You got a whole lot of tip control that way, and you've got that thicker spot to put your hand. So, do I like this? Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Jimping, really, really good jimping on here. It feels really good on the thumb. Good traction, not too hot, but grippy, and that's really nice. Everything's rounded. We don't have a flat spine, rounded all the way back and all the way around. We've got a GRN handle scale. Now that's a big change. The other ones, I think the default was G10, but I think you could find them with micarta as well. Flat slab G10 with rounded, edges for grip. They've decided to go with this GRN with this second system, and I'll be honest with you, I am prejudiced against GRN. I've always been prejudiced against it, maybe not for good reasons. This is the best GRN I've ever had, and I had the G10 on the other knife. I like this. I'm fallen in love with these GRN handle scales. We've got some texture on it, so you got some lines going one direction and then, roughly 90 degrees the other direction, back and forth. They are raised. They're not inset, so those are raised. And look at this. You've got, hopefully I'll show up here, big swell here, comes more narrow right here. It comes back narrow right here, and everything's round, but still with the grip everywhere. This feels really good in hand. I am very, very happy with these handle scales, and they're light. This knife feels lighter than it is, in part because the balance point, see right there? That is the perfect balance point. Way too many knives that have their balance back here, even behind where your index finger goes. And nope, I like this balance point. It is perfect, just perfect. I'll take the handle scales off in a little while. We've got 3mm hex screws on here. At the end of the handle here, if I pull this paracord loose, we've got, they call this a glass breaker back here. I don't know why you need a glass breaker on a hunting knife, but you can use it for all kinds of other stuff. If you're, cracking something, trying to break something, that's perfect, and it works really well. Great big nice loop, no sharp edges anywhere for your fingers. And then you've got this paracord on here. Now, if your hands are smaller than mine, then this paracord is a really good size. If I don't know if I'm going to end up keeping this knife. I think maybe a winner is going to choose this knife. Yeah, one of my Patreon or YouTube member winners. That is, if I put it up on that, I might do that. But I might just keep it. We'll see. I'll tell you before the end of the month, if I remember. Or I might put the text on the screen. Anyhow, you've got this sort of knot back here. So it's just a little bit too short to do the old, I'll do it with just a few fingers. I like to wrap my handle around like this. Now just imagine the paracord coming around the hand. I could just barely kind of grab it like that. That's a very secure way to hold a knife in your hands and not drop it. And if you do let go, your thumb's still holding it because your thumb is almost always facing up. Much better, much more security than just, putting it over your wrist like that. That does nothing to really help you. It's just hanging there. But of course, you can get your own paracord if you want to, change it out or whatever. But it comes with this piece of paracord. Badging. Well, on the spine of the handle, it says Acta non-Verba. I think the other ones had it up here on the spine of the blade where you've got your brand name. Now, that's a little bit big, but I don't mind it. It's not in your face. It's not obnoxious or anything. They've got their logo right there, which again, I don't mind. It's on the flat where I like it to be. It's not too big. And on this side, I showed you before, the P300 Sleipner. Oh, by the way, there's a little snowflake there. That's because they use cryogenic heat treatment, heat quenching when they do the quenching at the end. So that's great. Made in Czech Republic. If I didn't tell you in the introduction, Czech Republic, that's part of the European Union. That's where this thing is made. And it's nice. Some changes. Well, I already talked a little bit about this swedge. The other one had a more traditional sort of, the swedge comes down to a finer tip. Now this is a much more strong, durable tip, much less likely to have suffer damage if you abuse the knife, either intentionally or otherwise. But it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. I kind of like the other swedge shape better, but there you go. Oh, by the way, the other one, you could get it in this Sleipner, but you could also get it in stainless steel, N690 by Bowler. This is by Udelholm, this Sleipner. And so you could get like a stonewash treatment for the N690. I'm not sure if they did the stonewash on the Sleipner as well. Now it's just in the Cerakote. You can still find the old one if you look for it. And some of the links down below will have that, but I'm reviewing this new one. Another change for this new one that I like, sort of a combination change, is how secure it is in your hand. And this guard here is new. The other one didn't really have a guard, had a little bit of a bump here, had a little bit of a thumb rise, and then it came back down with no jimping. So this area of the knife in here has really changed an awful lot, and I like this better. You want to have a nice good guard if you're going to be piercing into anything. If you come to a sudden stop, you don't want your hand to slip. Let's say your hand got wet, slippery for whatever reason. That is a really good thing. And of course, I mentioned the jimping already. That's a big deal. And of course, the GRN and that. Those are the big changes. There you go. So that's sort of the overview of this thing. Do I like it? Yes, I like it. One thing I didn't like out of the box, and that's why I can show you this really beautiful edge on here now, because I sharpened it. I didn't like how it was sharpened. The grind angles were not really acceptable to me, and I'll tell you what those grind angles were. It was fairly sharp from the factory. It got a score of 190 best, which is acceptable, but I sharpened it to 20 degrees per side, and now this thing is a dream come true. It's a little bit thick behind the edge though, and that was also from the factory. So why don't we just do all the dimensions now, and I'll talk a little bit more about those angles. Let's talk about the weight first. The weight of this knife is 183 grams. That's 6.46 ounces. And yet with that balance being so perfect, it feels like it's like 5 ounces. It's just nice. This sheath system, 79 grams, 2.78 ounces, together 262 grams, 9.24 ounces. So it's a bigger knife, but it's not super heavy. Already told you the sharpness from the factory was 190. The cutting edge length, so between my thumbnails there, 133.0 millimeters, 5.24 inches. A little bit longer from the GRN to the tip of the knife, 133.5 millimeters, 5.26 inches. So yeah, so it's 5.25 inch blade. We've got a thickness of blade here, 5.01 millimeters. So the 01, that's probably the Cerakote. That's 0.1975 of an inch. So almost 0.2 of an inch. Good thick chunk of steel without being so thick that it's not really usable. This is very user-friendly thickness and very strong. The blade depth, this measurement, it's biggest here. It gets slightly narrower as you go along the blade until you get the big belly coming back up. This is 28.8 millimeters, 1.13 inches. The thickness behind the grind. If you don't know what that is, So the Cerakote comes to an end because you've got your edge sharpness right where that Cerakote ended from the factory sharpness. How thick was that? That was 0.68 millimeters, 27 thousandths of an inch. I like that to be a little bit thinner. In a hunting knife, you know, you don't want to go too terribly thin because it gets a little weak, but I think this is a little too thick for me. Is it usable? Certainly. The issue is every single time you sharpen the knife, it's going to be getting thicker behind the grind because of, you know, this flat grind. Even a hollow grind will eventually stop staying thin and start getting thicker. So I wish they would have brought that down to like 20 thousandths of an inch, like half a millimeter right there, because now it's even thicker, especially at the tip. But the average was, you know, 27 thou. The grind angles from the factory, this side was sharpened to 26.6 degrees. Now, that's too much of an angle for me. It's pretty consistent all the way along. This side was sharpened to an average of 24.9 degrees. So let's just say 25. It started at 23.4, ended at 26.4. That's a little over, that's probably closer to 90, isn't it? Yeah, it just looks more dramatic. That's about 50 degrees of an angle trying to cut into stuff. And for a hunting knife like this, I think 20 degrees per side is the widest angle I want to go. I don't want to go wider than that. So I sharpened it to 20 degrees per side and redid all of my tests. And it performed even better, by a fair bit better. I really, really like how well this thing performed at 20 degrees per side. And like I said, the Cerakote shows no damage. I even did a little bit of batoning with softwood. It's either some pine or some spruce. I forget exactly what I did because I did it like 4 weeks ago. And yeah, nice. Happy with that. So the sharpening from the factory, I know ANV is listening. Check more of your knives as they come off the line. Whoever's sharpening your knives for you is doing a bigger angle than I prefer. And I think most people prefer it to be like around 20 degrees instead of 50 degrees. So it's just one thing to check. But it's not that big a deal. And I have to tell you, viewers, these are freehand sharpened. Somebody's holding them in their hand, drawing the knife across either a wheel or a belt. And yours might come out at closer to 20 degrees per side. Like, don't think that because I say this was 26 and 25, that's what you're going to get. You might get one that's a lower angle because freehand. So it's one of those things that you have to do a lot of quality control verifications on to make sure that people are sharpening the way you want them to. So it's not a big diss on the knife because most guys can sharpen, and every guy can and gal can find somebody who can sharpen your knives for you. Might cost a few bucks. By the way, Canadian Cutting Edge does custom knife sharpening. Contact me if you need custom knife sharpening. The handle now. The handle length, that's just the GRN, not counting the sticking out of this breaker at the back. 125 millimeters, 4.92 inches. The thickness of the handle, the thickest spot right here, 23.8 millimeters. That's 0.937. But it comes quite a bit thinner, like right there. That's 16.5 millimeters, 0.65 of an inch. So nice variability, nice swelling. The handle depth within the grip area, the widest point back here, 33.7 millimeters, 1.33 inches. And the smallest area here, although this is very close to it, 24.7 millimeters, 0.97 of an inch. This will fill up your hand. By the way, my hands are just barely in the extra large range. The grip area, so between my thumbnails right there, that's around 95 millimeters, about 3 3/4 inches. The total length of this guy, 262 millimeters, 10.31 inches. So that's the measurements. What do I think of this knife? I'm very happy with this knife. If I wouldn't have had this in my hand, if I would have just looked at the specs, I would have said I'd rather have the original than this one. Now I'm not sure. This handle has really won me over. Have you got one of these? Let me know. I like G10. I'm a big fan of G10. I'm a big fan of micarta. But this GRN, glass reinforced nylon, is starting to win me over. Now, I did want to take these off to show you how it's made underneath there. So let's undo these screws. Is it still coming? Yeah, it's still coming. Maybe I should use a longer key just to be able to spin it better and get it out. Okay, that one's the center came out too. I guess the other side's supposed to come off, but hardly matters. It hardly matters. Take off whichever side you want. There you go. So there you go. See, it's hollow, the GRN. It's got lots of bracing in there, a lot more than a lot of knives have. So that's well done. Very, very light. One thing that I forgot to mention when I took this apart is these are two different sizes. Like this center bolt system, they're two different lengths. The longer one's for the back, the shorter one's for the front. You're going to have trouble putting it together. If you put the long one in the front first, you're not going to be able to get it together. So there's that. Happy with this. Big shout out of thanks to my supporters on Patreon and YouTube members. You guys are awesome. Here is, again, the P300 by Acta non-Verba. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Those things do make a difference. And remember, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.